Okay, let's get to it. The song of the summer. Isn't that what the kids call it? There is a new #1 hit in this country. Let's go ahead and put it up there on the screen. Oliver Anthony, he's a Southern Virginia gentleman, has now reached the #1 spot in the United States on the iTunes chart with the blue-collar anthem, quote, Rich Men North of Richmond. I'm going to go ahead and assume that some of you guys have actually heard it. We can't play it for you because of YouTube copyright law. Music in particular is pretty vicious. But we do have some of the quotes that we can go ahead and pull out for people. So let's go ahead and put Mr. Anthony playing this up there on the screen. So in terms of the actual lyrics to the song, there's been a lot of analysis of said lyrics, Krystal, and it's interesting because it certainly has struck a chord. So it opens, and I think with some good lyrics. He says, I'm, quote, living in the new world with an old soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Want to know what you think, want to know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, because your dollar ain't shit and it's taxed to no end because of rich men north of Richmond. Rich men north of Richmond, of course, referring to people here in Washington. So I think that the first 35, 40 seconds of the song are the reason why the song is such a success. It doesn't get into any like politics and turn right, I think, up until an interesting lyric about Jeffrey Epstein. You have to be online enough in order to know this. He says, quote, I wish politicians would look out for minors, and not just minors on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. So in that specific is it a stanza? Is that what it's called? All right, sorry, music people. It's a stanza. I don't know enough about it. That's where things take an interesting turn. He has me up until Epstein. Then things become a little bit more interesting. He says, quote, well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men aren't putting themselves 6 feet in the ground because all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. So here's my analysis of the song, Krystal. And I understand people love the song.
Tell me.
This should be put in a time capsule as what the Republican Party of today is. Because no, for real. And that's why it's taken off.
Yeah.
For several reasons.
Yeah.
It gets to the class anxiety in the first 35, 40 seconds.
Right.
Bullshit pay, overtime, substance abuse, being neglected by the elites, but then somehow takes a hard turn to Ted Cruz conservatism by going after food stamps, obese people, and welfare. So the two parts of the song don't really actually fit together to me, but the ideological confusion of the song actually is the perfect emblem of the Trump movement, where you have working class people like backing Trump, and then he goes and passes the largest tax cut in history, and they're like, no, he's fighting for the working man. And it's one of those where it ultimately, I think, comes to the cultural anxiety, which belies the plight of Mr. Anthony and a lot of the people around him. As I understand, he has a terrible substance abuse problem. He found God and has now found music. God bless you, for real, you know. And I wish this man absolutely nothing but success, and I continue to hope he does well. I'm more trying to look at it as a cultural sensation, and I think that the ideological confusion of that song it really is the perfect view of what the Republican Party is today. It's like free market libertarian, because you also, if you notice, he talks about taxation on the dollar and all of that. So he's like, well, I want lower taxes, but I'm also not making enough money. And I also am not for redistributive programs like food stamps. By the way, I looked into the data. Obesity actually does seem to go down as a result of the food stamp program. And so, yeah, anyway, I'm curious what you think.
The cheapest stuff to buy is crap.
Yes, and here's the other thing. That's not necessarily a food stamp problem. It's much more like a macroeconomic problem.
It's like a big ag problem.
Which you know, if you care about big government, you know, why are we propping up some of these filthy companies that are actually making everybody ridiculously obese? Whole other conversation. But like I said, we've got class anxiety backstopped by libertarian economics.
Yes.
This song to me is the Republican Party today, and that is why it's taken off so much.
I like your analysis.
That's why people like
a lot.
It.
It's so true, because I'll hear a lot. There's a lot of like working class rhetoric that's been embraced by the Republican Party, and then you're like, okay, what are we going to do about it? And it's like, we're going to have a debt ceiling shutdown to cut food stamps. Right. It's like, wait a second, you lost me. I mean, the fact that there's lines back to back that are concerned about people with not enough to eat, and then the very next line is like, so let's go after the welfare queens and cut food stamps.
Like, what?
I mean, listen, lots of people on both sides of the aisle have confused politics that if you really flesh it out, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I totally agree with your view of the politics embodied by this. It's like, if you take some Ron Paul libertarianism and you mix it up with some like Ronald Reagan welfare queen throwback politics, that's basically the song that you get. What I was thinking about too is, why did this touch such a nerve? And why did it blow up? Because let me be honest, like, I actually do enjoy some music in this genre. So it's not like I'm opposed to blues or country or whatever. I just don't think it's a good song. Like, putting the lyrics aside, the politics aside, I just genuinely don't think it's a good song. It blew up because of the politics that are in it. And I think there's a few things going on here. First of all, I think it's part of a trend of like this. You could think of Sound of Freedom. On the other side, you could think of Barbie and some other sort of like liberal type of art. That there's a real desire for people to wear their politics through their art. To signal like who they are through the art that they're talking about and at least pretending to enjoy. I've been reading, I know you already read this book, The Fourth Turning. We've been trying to get the author on the show. You, Marshall, you guys had him over on The Realignment. We'd love to have you on, by the way. And he
respond to our emails, please.
Yes. He had this line that about the particular phase of history that he posits we're in right now, which is like the crisis. He has this theory of like the periodicity of history. And he says, in the crisis phase, you don't ask, what does this art say to me? You ask, whose side does this art say that I'm on?
Interesting. That's a good call out.
And that landed so much for me listening to this song again, like Sound of Freedom, Barbie.
Try that in a small town.
Try that in a
huge small sensation.
Such a great, true. And I think it's especially true on the conservative side of the spectrum because they do feel very sort of like culturally sidelined. So anytime there's music, film, TV, whatever that they feel like represents their political perspective, you know, however imprecise or whatever, there's such a celebration of it because there's this deep desire to be like culturally visible and relevant. So even if the song is like not all that good, the fact that it has a lyric about, you know, welfare queens or about inflation or whatever, it's like, yes, or Jeffrey Epstein's like, yes, I'm going to embrace this. I'm going to love this because at least I feel like this person is like sort of like me.
So I polled my redneck friends and I said, all right, why do you guys love this song? What's, you know, and look, I think it's good. Like I said, I like the opening part. Country music in general is not for me. I grew up in Texas, bombarded with it. So I've rejected it ever since I left. They basically explained it this way, pretty much as what you said. They're pissed off that, quote, Nashville country has gone woke and alt country is increasingly also going woke. People in particular right now are very upset at Mr. Tyler Childers for having a song about some gay coal miners. I don't really understand it, but apparently Childers was like, played footsie with BLM kind of when things went out and people were pissed at him, so he went down. But then he had a recent music video where there were like two gay coal miners in one of his videos. His fan base got pissed off at him. They're like, what are we doing here? Like, what are you trying to do? And so it was seen as a kind of a betrayal. At the same time, we've seen Jason Aldean come out with Try That in a Small Town, which is a surge to a massive hit in the country. So I think that the line that you just said really encapsulates it, which is like whenever you want your art to reflect exactly like your personal political conviction. And that's why I think the thing is, the other genius thing about the Anthony song, if you think about it, is it reunites the entire Republican coalition. You've got the small business Republicans who love the welfare line. Then you've got the working class people who love the beginning lines about bullshit pay, overtime. You've got, he's a very religious. He opened his most recent show with a reading from the Bible. So you've got the evangelicals. He's got all the hallmarks of like the evangelical, like saved by Christ from substance abuse. And again, listen, God bless you, man. I truly only wish this man the best. So anyway, that's my analysis. That's why I think it's surged to a #1 hit. I also think you can feel some of the appears from what I've learned a little bit about him, some of the pain that the man has gone through. Lives in Appalachia. I think he genuinely was telling a story like mirroring his own life. Like earning very bad money. Drowning his sorrow in substance abuse, drugs, and alcohol. And then, finding the Bible, and then also turning to music to kind of outlay that. So there is something about the authenticity of where he's coming from where, I don't want to doubt him. I just think it's fascinating to look at it as like a piece and just to be like, this is it. Like if you were to ask me about what Republican politics in 2023 look like, it would be this right here.
Yeah. Interesting side note about where he's from. He's from Farmville, Virginia. Yeah. There's a very elite private boys' school,
really?
college, Hampton-Sydney.
Okay.
That is in Farmville. It's it's very rural area. He's not like, he's not misrepresenting. He's not like an elitist or whatever. I'm not saying that. Yeah. It's just funny because there is this like, it's the sort of school that if you have a kid, sorry, Hampton-Sydney alums out there, if you have a kid who doesn't do that well in high school, you can pay a shitload of money to send them to this school, and it's like they went to an elite school because of like the connections and whatever that they get. That's Hampton-Sydney.
It's like Georgetown Prep.
Anyway,
Sidwell Friends or any of these places.
Yeah. So some of the problems that he's concerned about are very close to home.
That area is it? This is the other. I saw some people be like, he's not even from Appalachia. Does that?
It's not Appalachia. I wouldn't call Farmville Appalachia.
So
it's
what
just
would you call it? Rural Virginia.
It's just it's rural. I mean, it's very rural. It's like farm. It's Farmville. Yeah. It's very country, rural, farms, etc. Just kind of in the middle of the state.
All right.
So,
well, as a Northern Virginia resident, I take offense, Mr. Anthony. we're the one who paying all your taxes. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.